The night Ethan Cole discovered his tenant inserting a stolen USB drive into his laptop, he had no idea the quiet college girl he'd rented a room to for $200 was Anna Voss, daughter of the billionaire whose corporation had killed his wife. She wasn't there to study art. She was there to expose her father's deadliest secret 17 murders, disguised as accidents, covered by lies and money. And now both their lives hung in the balance. Because when you steal from a man who owns everything, he doesn't just come for his property, he comes for everyone who knows the truth. Before we begin, I invite you to stay with me until the very end of this story. And please comment below with the city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story travels. The fluorescent bulb in the third-floor hallway of the Riverside Apartments flickered like a dying heartbeat, casting shadows that danced across peeling paint and worn carpet. Ethan Cole stood before the community bulletin board, his calloused fingers smoothing out a handwritten sign for the third time that week. Room for rent, $200 month. Quiet building. No smoking. First month plus deposit. His daughter's voice echoed from their apartment down the hall. Dad, we're out of milk again. Ethan closed his eyes and counted to 5. The number in his checking account flashed behind his eyelids, $347. Rent was due in 6 days. The electricity bill sat unopened on the kitchen counter because he already knew what it said, and knowing wouldn't change the fact that he couldn't pay it. Not yet. I know, sweetheart, he called back, forcing brightness into his voice. I'll grab some after my shift tonight. He pushed open the door to apartment 3C, and the smell of instant ramen the third night in a row greeted him like an old, unwelcome friend. Mia sat at their small kitchen table, her homework spread out in careful piles, her 7-year-old face scrunched in concentration. She had Hannah's eyes. Dark brown, perpetually curious, lit from within by something Ethan could only describe as stubborn hope. Every time he looked at her, his heart cracked and mended simultaneously. Mrs. Patterson said I did really good on my spelling test, Mia announced, holding up a paper marked with a bright red A+. See, I got beautiful right this time. That's because you are beautiful, Ethan said, ruffling her dark curls as he moved past her to the refrigerator. Inside the shelves told a story he'd grown tired of reading: half a jar of peanut butter, some wilted lettuce, a carton of eggs with 3 left. The milk jug stood empty, a forgotten soldier. He'd been here before, many times in the 2 years since Hannah died. The medical bills from her final months, the experimental treatments, the hospital stays, the desperate Hail Mary procedures that insurance mysteriously declined to cover had transformed their modest savings into a black hole of debt. The bill collectors had stopped calling after he'd changed his number for the 2nd time. Now they just sent letters, lots of letters, and then there was the matter of his former employer. Ethan had worked for Voss Holdings' manufacturing division for 11 years, started as a floor technician, worked his way up to senior maintenance engineer. Good pay, good benefits, good future. Until Richard Voss himself, never seen, only spoken of in the hushed, reverent tones reserved for deity or dictator, decided to restructure and optimize operational efficiency. 347 people lost their jobs in a single day. Ethan's insurance coverage ended exactly 2 weeks before Hannah's cancer returned with a vengeance. Coincidence, the HR representative had said with a plastic smile. Nothing personal, just business. Hannah had died 4 months later, drowned in pain that morphed into medical debt that would follow Ethan into his grave. Dad, Mia's voice pulled him back. Are you okay? He realized he'd been staring at the empty milk jug for too long. Yeah, baby. Just thinking. He closed the refrigerator door. Hey, you remember what we talked about? About the extra room? Mia nodded solemnly. You're gonna rent out Mom's art room. The words landed like stones in still water. Mom's art room. Hannah had painted there watercolors, mostly soft landscapes and portraits that captured emotion in ways photographs never could. The room still smelled faintly of linseed oil and turpentine. Her last painting sat on the easel unfinished. A portrait of Mia laughing, frozen in a moment of pure joy that now lived only in memory and pigment. "We need the money, sweetheart. You understand that, right?" "I know." Mia's voice was small but steady, too steady for a 7-year-old, too wise. "It's okay, Dad. Mom would understand." Ethan's throat tightened. Yeah, she would. He'd already cleared most of Hannah's things. The easel was in the closet now. The paints, brushes, half-finished canvases, all boxed and stored. The room held only a bed, a desk, a chair, and a small bookshelf. Anonymous. Ready for a stranger. The knock came at 6:47 p.m., right as Ethan was heating up dinner. When he opened the door, he found a young woman standing in the flickering hallway light. Early 20s, maybe. Petite with long dark hair, pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans, a plain gray sweatshirt, and carried a worn backpack over one shoulder. Her eyes, pale green, cautious, met his directly. "Hi," she said softly. "I'm here about the room." There was something immediately disarming about her. A quietness, yes, but also a kind of careful composure, like someone who'd learned to take up as little space as possible in the world. "Right, of course. Come in." Ethan stepped aside. She entered slowly, taking in the small apartment with quick evaluating glances. Mia looked up from her homework, curiosity brightening her features. "I'm Anna," the young woman said. "Anna Gray." "Ethan Cole, this is my daughter Mia." "Hi," Mia chirped, offering a small wave. Anna smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Hi, Mia. That's a pretty name." "It means mine in Italian," Mia informed her seriously. "Because I'm my dad's." "That's beautiful." Ethan led Anna down the short hallway. "So, full disclosure, this is a small place. One bathroom. The room's not big, but it's clean. I work nights, mostly delivering packages. Mia's usually asleep by 8. I'm looking for someone quiet, responsible. No parties, no drugs, no—" "I just need somewhere peaceful," Anna interrupted gently. "I'm studying art at City College. I'm not really a party person." He opened the door to Hannah's room. No, the room, just the room now, and Anna stepped inside. The evening light filtered through the single window, casting everything in shades of amber and shadow. Anna walked to the window and looked out at the street below, at the tired buildings and weary people, at the reality of a neighborhood where dreams came to negotiate with necessity. "It's perfect," she said quietly. "You haven't even asked about the rent." The sign said $200 a month, plus deposit. She turned to face him. "I can pay 3 months up front, cash." Ethan blinked. You don't have to." "I want to." Anna reached into her backpack and pulled out an envelope. Inside, neat $100 bills. First, last, and security deposit. $800 total. Does that work? Something flickered in Ethan's chest. Hope, maybe. Or suspicion. People their age didn't carry that kind of cash unless they were dealing or desperate. But Anna's eyes held neither the hardness of a dealer nor the desperation of an addict, just a quiet, almost sad determination. "Can I ask why you're not living in a dorm or with roommates closer to campus?" Anna's fingers traced the edge of the envelope. "I need space from my old life. A fresh start. This is far enough away that no one from school will just drop by. And honestly," she offered a rueful smile, "your building was the only place that didn't require a credit check, or 3 references, or proof of income 3 times the rent." It was the truth Ethan knew. The Riverside apartments didn't require much of anything except money and a pulse. The landlord, Mr. Kowalski, operated on a strict cash talks bullshit walks philosophy. "Okay," Ethan said. "When do you want to move in? Is tomorrow too soon?" Anna moved in on a Thursday morning while Mia was at school, and Ethan was sleeping off a rough delivery shift. When he woke at noon, he found her door closed and soft music playing inside, something classical piano gentle as rain. By the time Mia got home, Anna had already transformed the space. Somehow, impossibly, she'd made it hers without erasing Hannah's memory. A small desk lamp cast warm light. Books lined the shelf, art, history, philosophy, poetry. A single framed photograph sat on the nightstand, Anna with an older woman both smiling in front of a fountain. "Who's that?" Mia asked, pointing. Anna glanced at the photo and something flickered across her face. Pain, maybe, or loss. "My mom. She died when I was 15. The apartment seemed to hold its breath. "My mom died too," Mia said matter-of-factly. 2 years ago. Cancer." Anna knelt down to Mia's level. "I'm sorry. That's really hard." "Yeah." Mia studied Anna with the frank, fearless assessment of children. "Do you miss her?" "Every single day." "Me too." And just like that, a bridge was built. Over the next week, Anna became part of their small, broken constellation. She was quiet, yes, but present in a way that felt intentional. She asked before touching anything. She cleaned up after herself meticulously. She never complained about the thin walls, or the temperamental water heater, or the fact that the building's garbage disposal was really just a dumpster in the alley that overflowed every Sunday. But more than that, she connected with Mia. Ethan came home from his day job fixing industrial machines at a warehouse that paid half what Voss Holdings had to find Anna and Mia at the kitchen table, surrounded by colorful paper. "Look, Dad, Anna's teaching me origami." Mia held up a lopsided crane, pride radiating from her like sunlight. "It's a Japanese art form." Anna explained, her fingers deftly folding another crane with practiced precision. "Each fold is like a meditation. And there's a legend, if you fold 1,000 paper cranes, you get a wish." "What would you wish for?" Mia asked. Anna's hands paused. I think I'd wish for the courage to do the right thing, even when it's scary." "That's a good wish," Ethan said from the doorway. Anna looked up, startled, as if she'd forgotten he was there. Their eyes met and held for a moment too long, and Ethan felt something shift in the air between them. Recognition, maybe. The shared understanding of people who'd lost something irreplaceable and were learning to live in the space that loss carved out. That night, after Mia went to bed, Anna helped Ethan with the dishes, an unspoken routine that had developed naturally. "You didn't have to do that," Ethan said, nodding toward the origami cranes that now decorated Mia's bedside table. "The paper cranes, teaching her." "I wanted to." Anna dried a plate carefully. "She's a special kid, smart, kind. You're doing a good job with her." The compliment landed unexpectedly, and Ethan had to look away. "Some days I'm not so sure. Some days it feels like I'm barely keeping our heads above water." "But you are keeping them above water. That's what matters." He wanted to ask her why she was really here, why someone so young, so obviously educated and articulate, would choose to live in a rundown apartment with a struggling single dad and his grieving daughter. But the question felt invasive, and Anna's presence, quiet, helpful, undemanding, was the first good thing to happen to them in so long, so he didn't ask. That was his first mistake. The bracelet caught his attention on a Tuesday evening. Anna was reaching for a cup in the cabinet, and her sleeve pulled back to reveal a delicate silver chain around her wrist. But it wasn't the jewelry itself that made Ethan's blood run cold. It was the small distinctive charm dangling from it. A stylized V logo, elegant and unmistakable. Voss Holdings. Ethan had seen that logo on his termination paperwork, on Hannah's denied insurance claims, on the news reports about Richard Voss's latest acquisition or corporate milestone. It was burned into his memory like a brand. "Where did you get that bracelet?" The words came out sharper than he intended. Anna's hand flew to her wrist, covering the charm. "It was my mother's. Why? That logo. That's Voss Holdings." "I know." Her voice was very quiet. My mother used to work for them, long time ago. The explanation was plausible, reasonable even. Voss Holdings employed thousands of people. Half the city probably had some connection to the company. But something in Anna's eyes, a flicker of fear of guilt, made Ethan's instincts scream. What did she do there? He pressed. She was in marketing. Anna's fingers were white-knuckled around the charm. It was just a job. She left before I was born. Before Ethan could respond, Mia called from her room needing help with homework, and the moment dissolved. But the seed of doubt had been planted. That night, after Anna had retreated to her room, Ethan lay awake staring at the ceiling. The bracelet. The cash. The way Anna sometimes spoke with a polished diction that didn't quite match her thrift store clothes. The expensive leather backpack she'd tried to hide under cheaper canvas. He told himself he was being paranoid. That grief and financial stress were making him see conspiracies where there were only coincidences. But at 2:34 a.m., a thin line of light appeared under Anna's door. Ethan got up, moving silently in bare feet. He told himself he was just getting water, just checking the locks, just being responsible. But when he passed Anna's room, he heard the soft click of a laptop keyboard. The distinctive sound of a USB drive being inserted. He should have knocked, should have confronted her, should have demanded answers. Instead, he pressed his ear to the door and listened. Anna's voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I can't let you get away with this anymore. A pause. Then, I know what you did to them. To all of them. And I'm going to make sure everyone else knows too. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. He stepped back from the door, his mind racing. When he finally returned to his room, sleep was impossible. He sat on the edge of his bed, Hannah's photo on his nightstand, and tried to make sense of the girl sleeping 20 feet away. The girl who played with his daughter, who helped with homework, who'd brought warmth and something almost like hope back into their lives. The girl who wore Voss Holdings jewelry and whispered threats into the night. The next morning, Anna emerged from her room looking exhausted. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured coffee. Rough night? Ethan asked casually. Just studying, Anna said. Big project due. The lie sat between them like a third person at the table. Mia, oblivious, chattered about her upcoming field trip. Anna listened and responded and smiled in all the right places. She was good at this, Ethan realized. Good at pretending. Good at fitting in. Good at hiding. After Anna left for class, Ethan did something he wasn't proud of. He picked the simple lock on her door, a skill he'd learned in his reckless teenage years, and stepped inside. The room was meticulously organized. Textbooks on the desk, all real, all marked with notes. Clothes in the closet, simple, inexpensive, nothing suspicious. Until he saw the laptop. It sat on the desk closed, but not locked away. Ethan's hand hovered over it. This was wrong. Illegal. A violation of privacy and trust. But the bracelet, the whispered threats, the cash, the whole carefully constructed facade. His hand was shaking as he opened the laptop. It was password protected, but the screensaver showed a photo Anna younger standing next to a man in an expensive suit. They were at what looked like a yacht club. Behind them, a sign, Voss Family Annual Regatta. Ethan's world tilted sideways. He closed the laptop carefully exactly as he'd found it, backed out of the room, locked the door behind him. Then he went to the bathroom and threw up. Because now he knew. Anna Gray wasn't studying art at City College. Anna Gray probably wasn't even her real name. The quiet, kind girl who'd brought origami and laughter back into his daughter's life was connected to the company that had destroyed his. And she was hiding something. Something on a red USB drive that she'd labeled Project Raven Lake, Do Not Disclose. Ethan sat on the bathroom floor, his head in his hands, and tried to decide what to do. He could confront her, throw her out, call the police and report. What? that his tenant had a laptop. He could ignore it, pretend he'd never seen anything, take her rent money and mind his own business. Or he could do what every instinct screamed at him to do, find out exactly what Project Raven Lake was, and why Anna Voss was living in his dead wife's room. The answers came 3 days later in the worst possible way. Ethan was on his delivery route when his phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Cole? The voice was male, professional, cold. This is David Chen from Voss Holdings Legal Department. We need to discuss a sensitive matter regarding someone living in your residence. Ethan's hands went numb. I don't know what you're talking about. We have reason to believe you're currently housing Anna Voss, daughter of our CEO. She's in possession of proprietary company materials. We'll need to retrieve those materials, and we'll need your full cooperation. The line went dead. Ethan sat in his delivery van, parked outside a grocery store, and watched his hands shake on the steering wheel. Anna Voss, not Gray. Voss, daughter of Richard Voss, the man who'd signed the order that killed his wife, and she was in his home, with his daughter. He abandoned his route and drove home at exactly the speed limit, his mind spinning through 1,000 terrible scenarios. When he burst into the apartment, Anna was on the couch with Mia reading aloud from a picture book. They both looked up, startled by his entrance. Mia, Ethan said, his voice tight. Go to your room. But Dad... Now. His tone left no room for argument. Mia went casting worried glances back at Anna, who'd gone very still. The moment Mia's door closed, Ethan turned to Anna. They called me. Voss Holdings. They know you're here. All the color drained from Anna's face. What did you tell them? Nothing. I hung up. But you need to tell me the truth, right now, all of it. Anna stood slowly, her hands clasped together. For a long moment, she just looked at him, and Ethan saw something crack in her carefully constructed composure. My name is Anna Voss, she said finally. Richard Voss is my father. The words hung in the air like smoke. I know who you are. Anna continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I know you worked for my father's company. I know you lost your insurance. I know about Hannah. Ethan's vision blurred red. You knew this whole time, you knew. Please let me explain. You came here into my home, into my daughter's life, knowing what your father did to us. I came here because of what he did. Anna's voice broke. I came here to make it right. Ethan laughed, harsh and bitter. Make it right. Your father killed my wife. His restructuring ended my insurance right when she needed it most. She died because she couldn't afford the treatment that might have saved her. I know. Tears streamed down Anna's face now. I know, and she wasn't the only one. The statement stopped Ethan cold. What? Anna moved to her room and returned with a laptop and a red USB drive. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely plug it in. Project Raven Lake, she said. It's a town about 60 miles north of here. 5 years ago, my father's company bought the land around the lake. There was a chemical plant there, old, not profitable. So he shut it down, but not properly. He dumped the waste into the groundwater instead of disposing of it legally, because it was cheaper. She clicked through files, emails, reports, photographs. 17 people died from the contamination. Brain cancer, leukemia, aggressive fast-moving cancers. My father knew. His executives knew. They paid off the local officials, buried the reports, bought the property for pennies on the dollar after the mysterious illness drove property values into the ground. Ethan stared at the screen, at the faces of the dead. Men, women, children. Your wife, Anna whispered. Hannah Cole. She grew up in Raven Lake. She lived there until she was 18. The world stopped. The medical examiner noted unusual markers in her cancer, consistent with environmental toxin exposure. But by the time anyone connected the dots, the case was closed. My father's lawyers made sure of it. Ethan couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I found these files 6 months ago, Anna continued, hidden in my father's personal server. I spent weeks verifying everything, cross-referencing death certificates, property records, medical reports. It's all here. All the proof anyone would need to bury him. Why? Ethan's voice cracked. Why are you doing this? Anna looked at him with eyes that held too much grief for someone so young. Because my mother was number 18. She drank the same water, died the same way. And my father... Her voice broke completely. My father let it happen, knew it was happening, and chose his profit margin over her life. The silence that followed was absolute. I couldn't go to the authorities, Anna said. My father owns half the judges in this city. The police commissioner plays golf with him. The prosecutors take his campaign donations. So I ran. I changed my name. I found the families of the victims. I've been living with them one by one, making sure they know the truth. Making sure someone remembers. And what's the end game? Ethan asked. What happens when your father finds you? As if in answer, headlights flashed through the window. A black SUV pulled up to the curb across the street. Then another. Anna's face went white. They're here. Ethan's instinct was to grab Mia and run, but his feet felt bolted to the floor. Through the window, he watched 3 men in dark suits emerge from the SUVs, their movements coordinated and purposeful. They didn't look like lawyers. They looked like men who made problems disappear. Get away from the window, Anna hissed, pulling him back. Mia's in her room. We need to stay calm. But Anna's voice was anything but calm. It trembled with barely contained panic. They won't do anything violent. Not here, not with witnesses. You sure about that? Anna's silence was answer enough. Ethan moved quickly down the hall and opened Mia's door. His daughter sat on her bed surrounded by paper cranes, her eyes wide with the kind of fear that children feel when they sense their parents' terror. What's wrong, Daddy? He knelt beside her, forcing his voice steady. Nothing, sweetheart. Just some grown-up stuff. I need you to stay in here, okay, no matter what you hear. Don't come out until I come get you. Is Anna in trouble? The question landed like a punch. Of course Mia would worry about Anna. In 3 weeks, the young woman had become as essential to their small family as air. I don't know yet, Ethan said honestly. But I'm going to make sure we're all safe. I promise. He closed her door and returned to the living room, where Anna stood frozen, staring at the USB drive in her hand, like it was a live grenade. How did they find you so fast? Ethan asked. I don't know. I've been so careful. Different name. Cash only. No social media. No. She stopped abruptly, her face crumbling. Oh God. The laptop. I used it to access my email yesterday. Just once. I thought if I used a VPN... They tracked you through your email. My father has people. The best people. Hackers, private investigators, corporate security that makes the FBI look like mall cops. Anna's hands were shaking so violently that the USB drive nearly slipped from her fingers. I was stupid. So stupid. A heavy knock echoed through the apartment. 3 sharp raps that sounded like judgment. Ethan and Anna looked at each other. In that moment, 1,000 unspoken things passed between them. Anger, yes. Betrayal. But also something else. Recognition. The shared understanding of people who'd both lost everything to the same monster. Let me handle this, Ethan said. No, they're here for me. This is my home. My daughter is 20 feet away. So I'm handling it. Another knock, harder this time. Ethan crossed to the door and opened it, leaving the chain lock engaged. Through the narrow gap, he saw a man in his 40s, salt and pepper hair, expensive suit, cold eyes that cataloged everything in a single glance. Ethan Cole. The man's voice was smooth as glass and just as sharp. Who's asking? David Chen. We spoke on the phone. I'm here on behalf of Voss Holdings. He held up a leather credential wallet. We need to speak with Anna Voss. Don't know anyone by that name. Mr. Cole, we can do this the easy way or the complicated way. The easy way involves a simple conversation. The complicated way involves lawyers, police, and a lot of unnecessary stress for you and your daughter. Chen smiled, but it was the smile of a shark. I'd recommend the easy way. Behind Ethan, Anna stepped into view. It's okay. I'll talk to them. Anna, no. It's fine. She moved past him, her composure settling back into place like armor. Mr. Chen, I assume my father sent you. Your father is concerned about your well-being, Miss Voss. He'd like you to come home. I am home. Chen's eyes flicked past her, taking in the shabby apartment, the worn furniture, the life that existed in a different universe from the Voss family estate. This is not your home. This is a mistake, a phase. Your father understands you're upset about certain business decisions, but running away and stealing confidential company materials. I didn't steal anything. I took evidence of crimes. The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop 10 degrees. Careful, Miss Voss. Slander is a serious accusation. So is murder. Chen's smile never wavered. Your father has authorized me to offer Mr. Cole compensation for any inconvenience. Let's say $50,000, cash. All you need to do is pack your things and come with us. Tonight. Ethan felt the number like a physical blow. $50,000. That was 6 months of breathing room. A year, if he was careful. Mia's college fund. A future that didn't involve drowning in debt. Anna must have seen the calculation in his eyes because something in her face shuddered. Take it, she said quietly. You should take it. Miss Voss, please collect your belongings, Chen said. We have a car waiting. But Ethan was looking at Anna, really looking at her, and he saw what she was trying to hide. The resignation, the defeat, the bone-deep certainty that she was alone in this fight and always had been. He thought about Hannah, about the months of pain, the medical bills that read like ransom notes, the insurance denials that arrived with corporate letterhead that said Voss Holdings in elegant script. He thought about 17 other families, 17 other Hannahs, and he thought about the girl who'd taught his daughter to fold paper cranes and brought laughter back into their home, even though she carried her own ocean of grief. Get out, Ethan said. Chen blinked. Excuse me? You heard me. Get out of my building. Anna's staying here. Mr. Cole, I don't think you understand the gravity. No, I don't think you understand. This is my home. She's my tenant. She has rights. And unless you have a warrant or a court order, you need to leave. Now. For the first time, Chen's smile faltered. You're making a mistake. Won't be my first. Won't be my last. $50,000, Mr. Cole. Think about your daughter. I am thinking about my daughter. I'm thinking about what kind of man I want her to see when she looks at me. And it's not the kind who sells out a scared girl for money. Ethan's hand moved to close the door. We're done here. Chen's foot shot out, blocking the door. Mr. Voss doesn't like being told no. Then I guess he's going to have a bad night. The two men stared at each other through the gap in the door. Behind Chen, the other two security guards had moved closer, their body language shifting from professional to threatening. You have 48 hours to reconsider, Chen said finally. After that, things get more complicated, for everyone. He removed his foot, and Ethan slammed the door, engaging all 3 locks with shaking hands. In the silence that followed, Anna stood in the middle of the living room, tears streaming down her face. Why did you do that? She whispered. You could have the money, could have what? Bought my silence, my soul. Ethan turned to face her. Your father already took my wife. He doesn't get anything else. Anna's legs seemed to give out. She sank onto the couch, her whole body shaking with silent sobs. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I brought this to your door. I thought I was being careful. I thought I could. Her voice broke completely. I just wanted to do something right, for once in my life. Instead, I've put you and Mia in danger. Ethan sat down beside her, careful to maintain some distance. Tell me the rest. Everything. If we're in this, I need to know what we're in. So Anna told him. She told him about growing up in the Voss mansion, where money was infinite, but love was rationed. About a mother who'd been kind and gentle, and slowly poisoned by water she'd drunk on visits to her hometown. About watching her mother die while her father threw money at experimental treatments that couldn't undo what his own negligence had caused. She told him about discovering the files 6 months ago, about the moment she'd realized her father had known, had always known, and had chosen profit over 17 lives. 18 counting her mother. He tried to buy my silence, Anna said. Offered me anything I wanted, a penthouse in Manhattan, a trust fund that would make me independently wealthy. All I had to do was forget what I'd seen. But you couldn't. How could I? How could I look at myself in the mirror, knowing I'd let him get away with it? She wiped her eyes roughly. So I copied everything. Every file, every email, every piece of evidence. And I ran. Why didn't you go to the police, the FBI? Anna laughed bitterly. You don't understand how deep his influence goes. The police commissioner plays golf with him every Sunday. The district attorney, my father, donated $500,000 to his campaign. The mayor on the Voss Holdings board of directors. She met Ethan's eyes. The system isn't broken for people like my father. It's working exactly as designed. So what's your plan? Live under a fake name forever. My plan was to find the families, to look them in the eye and tell them the truth, to give them the evidence so they could decide what to do with it. Anna's voice strengthened. I've visited 12 families so far. Yours was the 13th. I needed you to hear it from me, not from lawyers or news reports, from the daughter of the man who killed your wife. The confession hung between them like a bridge or a wall. Ethan couldn't tell which. And then what? He asked quietly. After you told us all, what was the end game? I don't know. I thought maybe if enough people knew, if enough voices spoke up at once, even my father couldn't silence all of them. Or maybe... She stopped, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. Maybe I just wanted someone to tell me I wasn't crazy, that this mattered, that their lives mattered. Mia's door opened. She stood in the hallway, her face streaked with tears, still clutching a paper crane. Were those bad men? She asked. Before Ethan could answer, Anna was on her feet, crossing to kneel in front of Mia. Yes, sweetie, they were. But your dad was so brave. He told them to leave. Are they coming back? The question was directed at Ethan, but it was Anna who answered. Probably, but you know what? We're going to be ready. How? Anna took Mia's small hands in hers. By being smarter than them, braver than them, by standing together. She looked up at Ethan. If you'll let me stay. Mia turned to her father, her dark eyes pleading. Can Anna stay, Daddy? Please. Ethan looked at them. His daughter and the girl who'd brought light back into their darkness, even as she carried her own shadows. He thought about Chen's $50,000. About the easy way versus the right way. Yeah, he said finally. She can stay. The relief on Anna's face was so profound it hurt to witness. That night after Mia finally fell asleep, Ethan and Anna sat at the kitchen table, the USB drive between them like a red star. We need a plan, Ethan said. Your father's not going to give up. I know. He never gives up. That's his superpower, relentless, amoral persistence. So we need to be more relentless, and definitely more moral. Ethan pulled out his phone. I have a friend, Danny Park. He's an investigative journalist. Lost his job at the Tribune when they downsized, now runs an independent news blog. It's small, but he's good. He's honest. Anna's eyes widened. You want to go public? You said yourself the system's rigged, so we skip the system. We go straight to the people. If we do this, there's no going back. My father will come after you with everything he has. Lawsuits, intimidation, worse. He already killed my wife. What else can he take? Ethan met her eyes across the table. Besides, you're not in this alone anymore. That's the whole point of family, right? We stand together. Something cracked in Anna's carefully maintained composure. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks, but this time they looked different. Like relief, like hope. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet. We haven't won anything." "No, but you believed me. You chose to believe me. That's more than—" Her voice caught. "That's more than my own father ever did." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of what they were about to do settling over them like snow. "I need to tell you something else," Anna said finally. "About the grocery store." Ethan frowned. "What grocery store?" "The one we're going to tomorrow, when your card gets declined." His face flushed. "How did you—" "I checked your mail while you were at work. I'm sorry. I wasn't snooping, I saw the shutoff notice from the electric company. And I know Mia's school called about the lunch account being overdue." Anna reached into her pocket and pulled out a credit card. "I was going to pay for groceries tomorrow, and I was going to lie about it, pretend it was no big deal. But I'm done lying." Ethan stared at the platinum card in her hand. "I can't take your money." "It's not mine, it's my father's. There's a trust fund in my name. I have access to it. And honestly—" A fierce light entered her eyes. "I can't think of a better use for his blood money than feeding the family of the woman he killed." "Anna, please, let me do this one thing. Let me help." The next afternoon they went to the grocery store together, all three of them. Mia pushed the cart, carefully selecting items from Ethan's mental list. The cheapest options, the store brands, the things on sale. At the checkout, Ethan's card declined exactly as Anna had predicted. The cashier's pitying look was almost as painful as the shame that burned through him. "I've got it," Anna said quietly, stepping forward with her platinum card. The transaction went through instantly. $147.33. Nothing to Anna, everything to Ethan. "Thank you," he managed. On the walk home, Mia between them, Anna spoke so quietly, Ethan almost didn't hear. "My mother used to say that money is just a tool. It's not good or evil on its own. It's what you do with it that matters." She looked down at Mia, at Maud. "I want to do good things with it, even if it came from a bad place." "Your mom sounds like she was smart," Mia said. "She was, and kind, and she would have loved you." That night, Ethan called Danny Park. "You're telling me you have evidence that Richard Voss deliberately contaminated a town's water supply and covered up 18 deaths?" Danny's voice crackled with excitement and skepticism in equal measure. "Ethan, buddy, that's either the story of the decade or a lawsuit waiting to happen." "It's real. I've seen the files. Emails, medical reports, property records, everything." "And your source is Voss's own daughter?" "Yes." A long pause. "Jesus. Okay, I need to see everything. But Ethan, you need to understand, once this is out there, there's no taking it back. Voss will bury you in legal fees. He'll come after your job, your home, your reputation. He'll make your life hell. He already did that. This is just making it official." They agreed to meet in 3 days. Danny needed time to verify the documents to build a story that would be bulletproof. In the meantime, life in apartment 3C continued in its strange new normal. Anna helped Mia with homework. She cooked dinner, real meals, not instant ramen. She did laundry and dishes without being asked. She folded paper cranes with Mia until the apartment looked like it was preparing for flight. And slowly, cautiously, Ethan began to see her not as the daughter of his enemy, but as a young woman who'd lost her mother, same as Mia. Who'd chosen righteousness over comfort. Who'd walked away from billions of dollars because it was the right thing to do. One evening, while Mia was asleep, Anna showed Ethan a photograph on her phone. A woman who looked like an older version of Anna, same green eyes, same gentle smile, standing in front of a small house by a lake. "That's her," Ethan asked. "Your mom?" "Yeah, that's our old house in Raven Lake, before we moved to the city, before my father got rich." Anna's voice was distant, lost in memory. She was happy there. We both were. What was her name? Margaret. Maggie to her friends. Anna traced the image with her finger. "She used to take me to that lake every morning. We'd watch the sunrise and she'd tell me stories about the fish that lived in the deep parts, how they glowed in the dark, where no one could see." Sounds peaceful? It was, until it wasn't. Anna's jaw tightened. "My father bought the plant when I was 10. Within a year, fish started dying, then birds, then people got sick. And Maggie?" Her voice broke. She never connected it. Never thought her own husband would poison the place she loved most in the world. Ethan thought about Hannah, who'd grown up drinking that same water, swimming in that same lake, who'd carried those toxins in her body for decades before they finally killed her. "We're going to make him pay," he said quietly. "For all of them." Anna looked at him, her eyes shining with tears and something fiercer. "Promise me something. When this is over, whatever happens to me, promise you'll take care of Mia. Promise you won't let my father's money corrupt her. Teach her that doing the right thing matters more than being comfortable." "Anna, nothing's going to happen to you. You don't know that. My father has made people disappear before. Whistleblowers, journalists, anyone who threatened him. I need to know that if something happens to me, the truth still gets out, and Mia still has someone who'll teach her to be good." Ethan took her hand across the table. "I promise. But you're going to be here to teach her yourself." The moment stretched between them, fragile and fierce. Then headlights flashed through the window again. This time, it wasn't an SUV. It was a police car. 2 officers climbed out, their faces grim in the streetlight. "No," Anna whispered. "No, no, no." The knock came hard and official. Ethan opened the door to find 2 cops, their expressions professional but not unkind. "Ethan Cole?" the older one asked. "Yes." "We need to speak with Anna Voss. We have a warrant for her arrest." The world seemed to tilt. "On what charges?" "Theft of corporate property, cybercrimes, violation of non-disclosure agreements." The officer held up the paperwork. "Is she here?" Anna appeared in the doorway, her face pale but composed. "I'm here." "Miss Voss, I need you to come with us." "No." Mia's voice cut through the apartment. She ran from her room, throwing herself at Anna. "Don't take her. She didn't do anything wrong." "Mia, sweetie." Anna knelt down, tears streaming. "It's okay. I'll be okay. You promised. You promised you wouldn't leave." The rawness in his daughter's voice broke something in Ethan. He looked at the officers, at their uncomfortable faces, and made a decision. "Those charges, they're bullshit, and you know it. Richard Voss is trying to silence his daughter because she found evidence of his crimes." "Sir, that's not 18 people dead in Raven Lake. Contaminated water. Covered up. She has proof." Ethan's voice rose. "You arrest her, you're helping a murderer bury the truth." The older officer's expression shifted just slightly. "Mr. Cole, we have our orders." "Then I'm coming too, as her legal representation." He had no idea if that was even possible, but he said it with enough conviction that the officers hesitated. Anna stood gently disentangling herself from Mia. "It's okay. I'll go. Ethan, take care of her, and call Danny. Tell him to publish everything, tonight." The officers handcuffed her gently, apologetically. As they led her down the hallway, neighbors opened their doors watching. Mrs. Chen from 3A, the Rodriguez family from 2C, Mr. Kowalski, the landlord smoking in the stairwell. They all saw Anna Voss being led away in handcuffs. And they all saw Mia Cole crying like her heart was breaking. Ethan held his daughter as they watched the police car drive away, its red and blue lights painting the night in colors of emergency and loss. "We're going to get her back," he told Mia. "I promise." But as he said it, holding the USB drive that Anna had pressed into his hand at the last moment, he wondered if it was a promise he could keep, or if Richard Voss's power was finally absolutely too much to fight. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen table with the USB drive in front of him, his phone pressed to his ear as Danny Park's voice crackled through the speaker. "You're sure about this?" Danny asked for the third time. "Once I publish, there's no undoing it. Voss will come after both of us with everything he's got. He already arrested Anna. What else is he going to do? Ethan, you don't understand how these people operate. They don't just destroy you legally. They destroy your reputation, your employability, your ability to function in society. They'll dig up every mistake you've ever made and broadcast it to the world. They'll paint Anna as a mentally unstable girl who stole from her father and you as some predator who manipulated her." Through the thin wall, Ethan could hear Mia crying in her sleep. She'd finally exhausted herself around midnight, collapsing in her bed, still wearing her clothes, clutching the paper crane Anna had made her last week. "Then we make the story so airtight they can't twist it," Ethan said. "You said you verified the documents. You said they're real." "They are. I spent the last 2 days cross-referencing everything. The emails are legitimate. The medical reports match death certificates. The property records show exactly what Anna claimed. This is Jesus Ethan, this is Watergate-level corruption. But that also makes it dangerous. So you're saying no?" A long pause. Then Danny's voice came back harder, more determined. "I'm saying hell no. I'm not saying no. I became a journalist to tell stories that matter. This is the story that matters. I just need you to understand what you're walking into." "I understand. Publish it." "Give me 6 hours. I want to reach out to the other families first, get their statements on record. And I need to contact a few lawyer friends, make sure we're protected against defamation suits." Danny's fingers were already typing in the background. "Ethan, thank you for trusting me with this. Thank Anna. She's the one who did the hard part." After he hung up, Ethan sat in the darkness and thought about courage. Real courage, not the kind in movies where heroes faced down villains with quippy one-liners and improbable stunts. The quiet kind of courage that Anna had shown every day she lived under a false name, moving from one victim's family to another, carrying the weight of her father's sins like stones in her pockets. He thought about Hannah, who'd faced her death with a grace that still haunted him. Who'd held his hand in that hospital room and made him promise to take care of Mia, to teach her to be strong and kind and honest, even when the world rewarded none of those things. And he thought about Mia, 7 years old, and crying for a girl she'd known for less than a month, because children understood instinctively what adults often forgot, that love wasn't about time, it was about truth. At 4 in the morning, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop. Last warning. There are consequences for everyone involved." Ethan deleted it and called his neighbor from 3A, Mrs. Chen, whose husband worked as a paralegal. "Do you know any bail bondsmen?" he asked without preamble. "Mrs. Chen's voice was scratchy with sleep. "Ethan, it's 4 in the morning. I know, I'm sorry. But Anna, the girl who was arrested, she needs help." There was a pause. Then Mrs. Chen's voice came back, fully awake now. "The art student. The quiet one who helped Mrs. Rodriguez with her English. That's her. What did she do?" "She exposed her father's crimes, and now he's trying to bury her for it." Another pause, longer this time. "Her father. You mean Richard Voss?" "Yes." "Jesus, Mary, and Joseph." Mrs. Chen exhaled sharply. "You're serious? That girl is Richard Voss's daughter." "She is. And she has proof that he killed 18 people, including my wife. But instead of investigating him, they arrested her." The silence on the other end stretched so long Ethan thought the call had dropped. Then Mrs. Chen spoke, her voice tight with emotion. "My sister died of brain cancer 3 years ago. The doctors said it was environmental. Something in the water where she used to live. Her voice cracked. She lived in Raven Lake. Ethan's heart stopped. Mrs. Chen, give me 20 minutes, I'm making calls. The sun was rising when Ethan's phone rang again. This time it was Danny. It's live, he said simply. I published everything. The documents, the interviews with the families, Anna's statement. It's all out there. Ethan pulled up Danny's website on his laptop. The headline screamed across the top of the page, Billionaire's Secret, How Richard Voss Poisoned a Town and Covered Up 18 Deaths. Below it, Anna's face stared out from a photograph, young and determined. And beneath that, the article began with the words that would change everything. Anna Voss, 20-year-old daughter of billionaire CEO Richard Voss, has provided exclusive documentation proving her father's corporation deliberately contaminated the water supply of Raven Lake, resulting in at least 18 deaths from aggressive cancers. Among the victims, Voss's own wife Margaret Voss and Hannah Cole, wife of former Voss Holdings employee Ethan Cole. Ethan read it 3 times, his hands shaking. Danny had laid it all out with surgical precision. The timeline, the emails, the medical evidence, the property records showing how Voss Holdings had bought land for pennies on the dollar after the contamination drove down property values. And at the end, a quote from Anna that made Ethan's throat tight. My father chose profit over people. He chose money over my mother. And he spent 5 years covering it up because admitting the truth would cost him his empire. But some things are more important than empires. Justice is more important. Truth is more important. The lives of those 18 people are more important. By 6 a.m., the story had been shared 2,000 times. By 7 local news channels were reporting on it. By 8, it was trending on social media. And by 9:47 that evening, Richard Voss came to Ethan's door. Ethan was putting Mia to bed when the headlights flooded the apartment. Not just one car this time. 3 black SUVs arranged in a formation that looked almost military. Neighbors came to their windows, drawn by the spectacle. Mrs. Chen appeared at Ethan's door before he could even process what was happening. Don't open it alone, she said firmly. Mr. Rodriguez is coming too, and the Patels from 2B. Whatever happens, you're not facing this by yourself. Within minutes, half the building had congregated in the hallway outside apartment 3C, not inside, but present, watching, bearing witness. When the knock came, Ethan opened the door to find himself face to face with Richard Voss himself. He looked exactly like his photographs, tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Ethan's car. But photographs couldn't capture the cold calculation in his eyes, the way he seemed to evaluate everything and everyone as either asset or obstacle. Mr. Cole. Voss's voice was smooth-cultured, utterly devoid of warmth. We need to talk about my daughter. She's in jail because of you. She's in jail because she stole corporate property and violated numerous confidentiality agreements. Voss glanced past Ethan at the gathered neighbors. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. Anything you have to say, you can say in front of them. Voss's jaw tightened slightly, the only sign of irritation in his otherwise perfect composure. Very well, I'm here to make you an offer. Drop this crusade, convince Anna to recant her statements, and I'll see that all charges are dropped. Furthermore, I'll provide you with a settlement. $250,000, tax-free. Behind Ethan, someone gasped. $250,000, life-changing money. Mia's entire future paid for in a single check. And in exchange, Ethan asked, you sign a non-disclosure agreement. The article gets retracted. My daughter comes home and receives the psychological help she clearly needs. Everyone moves on with their lives. Except the 18 people who can't move on because they're dead. Voss's expression didn't change. Those were tragic accidents, environmental factors beyond anyone's control. My legal team has already prepared statements from multiple expert witnesses who will testify to that effect. Your legal team is lying. My legal team is the best in the country, and they will bury you, Mr. Cole. They will bury that journalist friend of yours. They will bury anyone who continues to spread these malicious, unsubstantiated claims. Voss leaned forward slightly. I'm offering you a way out. Take it. Ethan felt the weight of every eye on him. Mrs. Chen, whose sister had died. Mr. Rodriguez, who'd fled Guatemala with nothing and rebuilt his life from zero. The Patels, who sent money home to family in Mumbai every month. All of them knew what $250,000 could mean. No, Ethan said. Voss blinked. Excuse me. I said no. You can't buy me. You can't buy the truth. And you sure as hell can't buy your way out of what you did to those people. Mr. Cole, you're unemployed, drowning in debt, raising a daughter alone. You're one missed rent payment away from eviction. And you're refusing $250,000 out of what principal? Voss's laugh was sharp and cold. Principals don't feed children, Mr. Cole. Maybe not, but they teach them. Ethan's voice was steady now, certain. My daughter is watching everything I do, every choice I make. And I'll be damned if I teach her that we sell out people's lives for money. You're making a mistake. Then it's my mistake to make. Voss's mask of civility cracked. You think you've won something with that pathetic little article? I own this city, Mr. Cole. I own the judges. I own the prosecutors. I own the politicians who write the laws. Your journalist friend will be sued into bankruptcy by morning. The article will be taken down, and my daughter will spend the next decade in legal hell for what she's done. Maybe. Ethan pulled out his phone. Or maybe people are tired of being owned. He held up the screen showing Danny's article. 12,000 shares in 12 hours. Every major news outlet picking it up. The FBI already announced they're opening an investigation based on the evidence. Your stock dropped 15% today. He smiled without humor. Turns out you don't own everything. Something dangerous flickered in Voss's eyes. You have no idea what you've started. You're right, I don't. But I know what you started 5 years ago when you poisoned that town. And I know it ends tonight. Behind Ethan, the hallway was completely silent. Then Mrs. Chen stepped forward. My sister was Maria Gonzalez, number 14 on Anna's list. She died at 43, leaving behind 2 children. Her voice shook but held firm. You killed her. Mr. Rodriguez moved beside her. My cousin lived in Raven Lake, lung cancer at 38, never smoked a day in his life. My uncle, Mr. Patel added quietly. Leukemia. One by one, neighbors spoke. Not all of them had lost someone, but all of them had known someone who'd been sick, who'd struggled, who'd died before their time. The kind of stories that get dismissed as bad luck, or God's will, or just the way things are, until someone proves they weren't accidents at all. Voss looked at the gathered faces, and for the first time Ethan saw something like fear in his eyes. Not fear of the law or financial consequences. Fear of something more primal being seen, being known, having all his carefully constructed power stripped away by the simple act of people bearing witness. You're all making a mistake, Voss said, but his voice had lost its certainty. No, Ethan said quietly. We're correcting one. Voss turned to leave, but the hallway was crowded now. More neighbors had arrived, drawn by the commotion. He had to push past them, and not one of them moved to make space. He was forced to squeeze through diminished while phone cameras tracked his every step. When he reached the stairs, he turned back. This isn't over. Yes, it is, Ethan called after him. You just don't know it yet. The SUVs pulled away minutes later, and the hallway erupted in conversation. Mrs. Chen hugged Ethan. Mr. Rodriguez clapped him on the shoulder. The Patels offered to watch Mia any time he needed. But Ethan was thinking about Anna alone in a cell, not knowing that the story was out, that people believed her, that her courage had started something that couldn't be stopped. He called the jail. The officer who answered was professional but unhelpful. Visiting hours are 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. No exceptions. I need to speak with her, just for a minute. Tell her, Sir, I can't pass along messages. If you want to communicate, come during visiting hours. Ethan hung up frustrated. Then his phone buzzed with a text from Danny. "Turn on channel 7, now." He rushed to the TV. Mia, awakened by the commotion, stood in her doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, what's happening?" "Come here, sweetheart." She climbed onto the couch beside him as he turned on the news. The anchor was speaking urgently. "Dramatic developments in the Voss Holdings scandal. We've just received exclusive footage of Richard Voss himself confronting Ethan Cole, the widower, whose wife was allegedly killed by the Raven Lake contamination." The screen switched to shaky phone footage. It was their hallway, their neighbors. And Richard Voss, his face twisted with barely contained rage, saying, "I own this city, Mr. Cole. I own the judges. I own the prosecutors." Ethan's stomach dropped. Someone had recorded the entire confrontation. The footage continued, showing Voss pushing through the crowd, showing the neighbors speaking up about their lost loved ones, showing Ethan standing firm in the face of threats and money. "That's you, Daddy." Mia pointed at the screen. The anchor was back. "This footage has already gone viral with over 50,000 shares in the last hour. Legal experts say Voss's admission that he owns city officials could trigger additional investigations into corruption and judicial misconduct. Meanwhile, the FBI has confirmed they've opened a formal investigation into the Raven Lake contamination." Another text from Danny. "You're trending nationwide. This is bigger than Watergate." Ethan's phone started ringing. News organizations, legal advocates, people claiming to be from the FBI. He let them all go to voicemail. The only call he answered was from a number he didn't recognize at 10:30 p.m. "Mr. Cole." The voice was female, professional kind. "This is Sarah Martinez from the Public Defender's Office. I'm calling about Anna Voss." "Is she okay?" "She's fine. Better than fine, actually. Her bail hearing is tomorrow morning at 9. Given the public interest in this case and the evidence of potential retaliation, I'm confident the judge will release her on her own recognizance." Relief flooded through him so powerfully, he had to sit down. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me yet. Mr. Voss has retained Kellerman and Block to represent him. They're the most aggressive defense firm in the country. This fight is just beginning." "I know, but Anna won't be fighting it alone." "No," Martinez said, and Ethan could hear the smile in her voice. "She certainly won't." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Mia's soft breathing from her room. He thought about Hannah, about how she would have loved Anna's courage, how she would have been proud of what they were doing. He thought about the moment in the hallway when his neighbors had stood with him, not because he'd asked, but because it was right. When Mrs. Chen had spoken her sister's name aloud, claiming her place in the story, instead of letting her be another anonymous statistic. He thought about Richard Voss's face when he realized his power couldn't silence the truth anymore. That money and influence only worked when people agreed to be bought, and somewhere along the way, enough people had decided they were done being bought. At midnight, his phone buzzed. A text from another unknown number. This time, the message was different. "Thank you for believing her, for standing with her. You saved my daughter's life, Margaret's sister." Then another. "My husband died in Raven Lake. I thought I was crazy, thought I was just angry and looking for someone to blame. Thank you for showing me I wasn't wrong. Sarah K." The messages kept coming. Families of the victims, people who'd lived in Raven Lake, strangers who'd read Danny's article and felt compelled to reach out. By morning, there were 73 messages. 73 people saying the same thing in different words. "You are not alone." The bail hearing was standing room only. Ethan arrived early with Mia, who'd insisted on coming. "Anna needs to see us," she'd said with the absolute certainty of childhood. "She needs to know we didn't leave her." They sat in the third row, surrounded by strangers who'd become allies overnight. Mrs. Chen and Mr. Rodriguez. Danny Park with his laptop documenting everything. People holding signs that read, "Justice for Raven Lake," and "We believe Anna." When Anna was led into the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit, her eyes found Ethan's immediately. The relief and gratitude on her face made his throat tight. The prosecutor argued that Anna was a flight risk, that she had access to considerable resources, that the charges were serious. But Sarah Martinez stood up and played the footage from the hallway. Showed Richard Voss making threats. Showed him offering bribes. Showed him admitting to owning the very judicial system that was supposed to ensure justice. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, watched it all with an expression that grew progressively colder. "Miss Voss," she said when the footage ended, "do you have somewhere safe to stay?" Anna's voice was steady. "Yes, Your Honor, with Mr. Cole and his daughter." "And Mr. Cole, you're willing to take responsibility for ensuring Miss Voss appears at all required hearings?" Ethan stood. "Yes, Your Honor, absolutely." The judge looked at the prosecutor. "Bail is set at $5,000 own recognizance. Miss Voss is released to Mr. Cole's custody pending trial." She leaned forward, her eyes hard. "And I'm referring this case to the Ethics Committee. If there's any evidence that Mr. Voss has been influencing judicial proceedings, there will be consequences." The courtroom erupted in applause. Anna's hands were shaking as they removed her cuffs. She walked toward Ethan on legs that seemed barely capable of holding her weight. When she reached them, Mia threw her arms around her waist. "You came back," Mia said. "You kept your promise." Anna knelt down, tears streaming. "I'll always keep my promises to you." Outside the courthouse, reporters mobbed them. Cameras flashed. Questions flew like attacks. "Mr. Cole, what's your response to Richard Voss's claims that this is all fabricated? Miss Voss, do you have any regrets about exposing your father? Are you afraid of retaliation?" Ethan raised his hand and somehow miraculously the crowd quieted. "We're not going to answer questions today," he said. "But I want to say one thing. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about tearing down a powerful man. This is about 18 people who died and deserved better. This is about making sure their deaths meant something. And this is about teaching our children." He pulled Mia close. "That doing the right thing matters more than being comfortable." Anna stepped forward, her voice clear despite her tears. "My father made a choice 5 years ago. He chose money over lives. He chose his empire over my mother. And he's been choosing to cover it up every day since." She looked directly into the cameras. "I'm choosing differently. I'm choosing truth. And I'm choosing these people." She gestured to Ethan and Mia, who showed me that family isn't about blood or money. It's about who stands with you when standing is hard. The reporters erupted again, but Ethan was already guiding Anna and Mia through the crowd. Mrs. Chen and Mr. Rodriguez formed a protective barrier around them, helping them reach Ethan's old car. As they drove away, Anna sat in the back seat with Mia, their hands clasped together, watching the courthouse disappear in the rearview mirror. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. Ethan met her eyes in the mirror. "Now we keep fighting. Together." "Together," Mia echoed. And Anna smiled, a real smile, the first one Ethan had seen since the night she'd been arrested. Because she wasn't alone anymore. And neither was he. The apartment felt different when they returned. Smaller somehow, as if the walls had contracted in Anna's absence. Or maybe it was just that the world outside had expanded so dramatically that this small sanctuary couldn't contain it anymore. Mia refused to let go of Anna's hand as they climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Mrs. Chen met them in the hallway with a pot of soup that was still warm. Mr. Rodriguez had fixed the flickering light bulb. The Patels had left a card under the door with a simple message, "Welcome home." Anna stood in the doorway of apartment 3C, reading those 2 words over and over, her eyes filling with tears. "I've never had a home," she said quietly. "Not really. The mansion was just a building, beautiful and cold and empty. But this?" She looked around at the worn furniture, the paper cranes hanging from the ceiling, the photographs of Hannah that Ethan had finally been able to display again. "This feels like home." "Because it is," Mia said matter-of-factly. "You live here. That makes it home." That first night back, they ordered pizza because none of them had the energy to cook. They ate it sitting on the floor around the coffee table, the TV playing the news on mute, because they couldn't escape the story even if they wanted to. Every channel showed the same footage: Richard Voss being escorted into FBI headquarters, protesters gathering outside Voss Holdings, the stock price plummeting, legal analysts debating whether a CEO could be held criminally responsible for environmental contamination, and everywhere Anna's face, the daughter who'd chosen truth over inheritance. "Do you regret it?" Ethan asked as Mia dozed against Anna's shoulder. "Any of it?" Anna was quiet for a long moment. "I regret that it took me so long. I regret that I didn't find my courage earlier when maybe I could have saved someone. But exposing him, standing up." She looked down at Mia's sleeping face. "No, I don't regret that." The lawsuit started the next morning. Richard Voss filed a civil suit against Anna for theft, breach of fiduciary duty, and defamation. Kellerman and Block, his legal team, filed motions to freeze her trust fund, to seize her laptop, to prevent her from speaking to the press. They filed a separate suit against Danny Park for libel, demanding not just a retraction, but $10 million in damages. And they filed a suit against Ethan for harboring a fugitive, even though Anna had never been a fugitive, and for conspiracy to commit corporate espionage, even though Ethan had never touched the files until Anna was arrested. Sarah Martinez called at 8 in the morning with the news. "They're coming at you from every angle," she said bluntly. "It's a classic intimidation strategy. Bury you in legal fees, force you to spend all your time and money on defense instead of offense." Can they win? Honestly, probably not. The evidence is too strong and public opinion has turned dramatically against Voss. But they don't need to win. They just need to drag it out long enough to bankrupt you and discredit Anna. Ethan looked at Anna, who was sitting at the kitchen table with her head in her hands. She'd barely slept. Dark circles shadowed her eyes and her hands trembled whenever she picked up her coffee cup. "What do we do?" he asked. "We fight. I've already contacted the ACLU and several advocacy groups. They're willing to provide legal support pro bono. And there's a victims' rights organization that wants to help the Raven Lake families file a class action suit." Martinez paused. "But Ethan, you need to understand this could take years, and it's going to get worse before it gets better." She was right. By noon, a process server had appeared at Ethan's workplace delivering the lawsuit in front of his coworkers and supervisor. The supervisor, a nervous man named Garrett, who avoided conflict like disease, called Ethan into his office. "Look, man, I don't want to do this," Garrett said, not meeting Ethan's eyes. "But corporate heard about the lawsuits. They're worried about liability, about being associated with—" He gestured vaguely. "All this." Ethan's stomach dropped. "You're firing me. I'm putting you on unpaid leave until the legal situation resolves. I have bills, Garrett. I have a kid." "I know. I'm sorry. But my hands are tied." Garrett finally looked at him, and there was genuine regret in his eyes. "For what it's worth, I think what you're doing is brave, but brave doesn't pay the bills." Ethan cleaned out his locker in silence, ignoring the stares of his coworkers. Some looked sympathetic, others looked relieved it wasn't them. A few looked away entirely, as if his bad luck might be contagious. When he got home, he found Anna on the phone, her voice tight with barely controlled emotion. "I understand, Dean Morrison. Thank you for your time." She hung up and turned to Ethan. "City College just expelled me. They said my presence on campus created a disruptive environment and posed a security risk to other students. They can't do that." "They just did." Anna laughed, but it was hollow. "Apparently 3 different Voss Holdings board members are major donors to the college. Funny how that works." That night, as they scraped together dinner from what little remained in the pantry, the electricity went out. Ethan checked the breaker box, but he already knew what had happened. He'd ignored the shutoff notice because he'd planned to pay it with his next paycheck. The paycheck that would never come. They ate by candlelight, and Mia thought it was an adventure, until she realized her nightlight wouldn't work and she was afraid of the dark. "I'll stay with you," Anna said, settling onto the floor beside Mia's bed. "We'll tell stories until you fall asleep." Ethan stood in the doorway, listening to Anna's soft voice, weaving tales about brave princesses and magical creatures, and something cracked in his chest. Here was a girl who'd lost everything: her family, her fortune, her future, and she was using her last reserves of strength to comfort a frightened child. He made a decision. At midnight, while Anna and Mia slept, Ethan called the number David Chen had given him weeks ago, the number he'd deleted and then retrieved from his trash folder. Chen answered on the second ring, sounding completely awake despite the hour. "Mr. Cole, I was wondering when you'd call." "The offer," Ethan said. "The $250,000. Is it still on the table?" A pause. Then, "Under different circumstances, yes. But given recent developments, Mr. Voss has revised his terms. He's willing to offer $50,000, take it or leave it." $50,000. Not enough to change their lives, but enough to survive. Enough to keep the lights on and food on the table while they figured out what came next. What does he want in return? Anna recants her statements, claims she was emotionally unstable, acting out against her father. The files are returned and destroyed. You both sign NDAs and disappear from public view. Chen's voice was matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing the weather. "It's a generous offer considering your current circumstances." Ethan thought about Mia sleeping in the dark, about the empty refrigerator, about the stack of unpaid bills that grew larger every day. He thought about Hannah dying because she couldn't afford treatment. He thought about 17 other people who died the same way. "Tell Richard Voss to go to hell," Ethan said, and hung up. The next morning brought unexpected help. Ethan woke to find his phone filled with notifications. Hundreds of them. People had started a crowdfunding campaign for the Raven Lake Whistleblowers. The goal was $25,000 to help with legal fees and living expenses. They'd raised $60,000 in 18 hours. The messages that came with the donations made Ethan's throat tight. "My mother died of cancer at 42. Environmental contamination. No one ever held the company accountable. Thank you for fighting. I lost my job for speaking up about safety violations. I know what it costs to do the right thing. You're not alone." For Hannah, for Margaret, for all of them. Anna cried when he showed her. "I don't understand. These are strangers. Why would they?" "Because they're not strangers," Ethan said. "They're people who've been in the same fight, or who wanted to fight but couldn't, or who just believe that the truth matters." By noon, the crowdfunding had reached 80,000. By evening, 120,000. The donations came from all over the country. $5, $20, sometimes $500 from people who could clearly afford it and felt compelled to help. But not everyone was supportive. The death threats started that same day. Messages calling Anna a traitor, a liar, a spoiled brat who'd turned on her own family. Emails telling Ethan he was a manipulator, a gold digger using a vulnerable girl for his own gain. And then there were the ones that were more specific, more frightening. "You should watch your daughter more carefully. Accidents happen. People who betray their own blood don't deserve to live. We know where you live." Sarah Martinez contacted the police, who assigned a patrol car to drive by the apartment building twice per shift. It wasn't much, but it was something. That night, Ethan installed new locks on the apartment door and gave stern instructions to Mia about stranger danger. She listened with wide, frightened eyes, and he hated that he had to scare her. Hated that the world had become a place where his 7-year-old needed to understand concepts like credible threats and enhanced security. But he hated Richard Voss more. The FBI investigation moved faster than anyone expected. Within a week, agents had seized files from Voss Holdings headquarters. Within 2 weeks, they'd arrested 3 executives who'd helped orchestrate the cover-up. Within 3 weeks, they'd frozen Richard Voss's personal assets pending criminal charges. And with each development, the public support grew stronger. Survivors of Raven Lake began coming forward telling their stories. A woman named Patricia, who'd lost her husband and both parents to cancer within 2 years. A man named James, whose daughter had been born with severe birth defects linked to toxin exposure. A teacher named Ellen, who'd watched 3 of her students die before their 20th birthdays. Danny Park interviewed them all, weaving their stories into a tapestry of grief and rage and determination that couldn't be ignored. The class action lawsuit gained momentum. 47 families joined. Then 63. Then 89. Each one representing a life destroyed or permanently altered by Richard Voss's greed. But Voss wasn't going down quietly. His PR team launched a counteroffensive painting Anna as mentally unstable, manipulated by anti-corporate activists. They released carefully edited footage of her childhood showing a troubled girl acting out, throwing tantrums, looking unstable. What they didn't show was the context: a 13-year-old watching her mother slowly die, lashing out in grief and confusion. They released financial records showing Anna had spent lavishly in college, $50,000 on art supplies, $20,000 on travel. They implied she was spoiled, wasteful, hypocritical. What they didn't mention was that most of that money had gone to charity, to helping other students who couldn't afford supplies, to volunteering abroad with environmental cleanup organizations. The smear campaign was sophisticated and well-funded, and it worked on some people. Social media filled with debates about Anna's motives. Was she a hero or an opportunist, a brave whistleblower or a vindictive daughter? Ethan watched it all with growing fury, but Anna seemed almost resigned to it. "This is what my father does," she said one evening as they watched a panel of talking heads debate her character on TV. "He doesn't just destroy his enemies legally, he destroys them personally, makes them into monsters so no one believes their truth. We need to fight back." How? He has unlimited resources and no conscience. We have... She gestured around the small apartment. "This. We have the truth. The truth didn't save my mother. It didn't save Hannah. It didn't save any of them." Anna's voice cracked. "Sometimes the truth isn't enough." It was Mia who changed everything. She'd been quiet during dinner, pushing food around her plate, clearly thinking hard about something. Finally, she spoke. "Anna, remember when you taught me about the 1,000 paper cranes, about how if you fold 1,000, you get a wish?" Anna nodded, confused about where this was going. "How many have we folded?" "I don't know, maybe 100. Mia's face lit up with determination. "We should fold 1,000, and our wish should be that your dad goes to jail and all the sick people get better and everyone knows you're telling the truth." The simplicity of it, the pure, unshakable faith that doing something good could make good things happen, made both Anna and Ethan's eyes burn with tears. "That's a beautiful wish, sweetheart," Anna said. "But I don't think we should do it anyway," Mia insisted. "Even if the wish doesn't work, we should try." So they did. Every night after dinner they folded paper cranes. Anna taught Ethan the technique, and soon all 3 of them sat around the kitchen table, their fingers learning the meditation of fold and crease, of transforming flat paper into something that resembled flight. They strung the finished cranes from the ceiling across the windows along the hallway. The apartment began to look like a sky filled with birds, colorful and hopeful, and impossibly fragile. Neighbors noticed. Mrs. Chen started folding cranes with them. Then Mr. Rodriguez and his daughters. Then the Patels and their son. Soon half the building was folding paper cranes, adding them to the growing flock that filled apartment 3C. And someone took a photo. It appeared on social media with the caption, "This is what courage looks like. A 7-year-old girl folding paper cranes, wishing for justice for people she never met. This is why we fight." The photo went viral. Within 24 hours, people across the country were folding paper cranes. They mailed them to Ethan's apartment building, hundreds, then thousands of them. They hung them outside Voss Holdings headquarters. They left them at the FBI building, at courthouses, at City Hall. Each crane carried a message. "We believe Anna. We believe the truth. We believe in justice. The paper crane movement became a symbol of the fight against corporate impunity, of ordinary people standing against extraordinary power. And Richard Voss, for the first time in his life, found himself on the losing side of a narrative he couldn't control. The turning point came 6 weeks after Anna's arrest. FBI Director Morrison held a press conference flanked by federal prosecutors and evidence boxes stacked 6 feet high. Today we are announcing a 17-count indictment against Richard Voss and Voss Holdings for negligent homicide, environmental crimes, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Morrison's voice was grave. The evidence we've gathered proves beyond doubt that Mr. Voss knowingly contaminated the water supply of Raven Lake, covered up the resulting deaths, and used his wealth and influence to evade prosecution for 5 years. The press room erupted. Morrison continued over the noise. We're also announcing arrests of 6 Voss Holdings executives, 3 local officials who accepted bribes to suppress evidence, and 2 employees of the medical examiner's office who falsified autopsy reports. Ethan, Anna, and Mia watched it on their newly restored television. The electric company had turned the power back on after receiving payment from the crowdfunding campaign. Anna's hands shook so badly she could barely hold her coffee cup. "He's really going to trial," she whispered. "This is really happening." "Justice is happening," Ethan corrected gently. The news showed footage of Richard Voss being arrested at his mansion at dawn. He wore a bathrobe. His silver hair uncombed his face for once, showing genuine emotion, rage mixed with disbelief. He'd never imagined this could happen to him. People like him didn't go to jail. They owned the jails. But the world had changed. The public outpouring of support for Anna and the Raven Lake families had created pressure that even Voss's money couldn't relieve. Politicians who'd accepted his donations scrambled to distance themselves. Judges he'd played golf with recused themselves from related cases. The whole carefully constructed network of influence began to crumble. That night, Sarah Martinez called with an update on the civil suits. Kellerman and Block withdrew this morning. All of them. The suit against you, against Anna, against Danny. They're dropping everything. Why? Because Richard Voss can't pay them anymore. The FBI froze all his assets, and no law firm wants to be associated with defending a man facing 17 murder charges. Martinez laughed, and it sounded like relief. You won, Ethan. You actually won. But it didn't feel like winning. Not yet. That came 2 days later when a lawyer named Margaret Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen from 3A, called asking to speak with Anna. "I represent the estate of Margaret Voss," she explained. "Your mother." Anna went very still. "My mother's estate." "Yes, your mother had a separate trust that your father didn't control. She established it years before her death, and it was designed to be distributed to you on your 21st birthday or upon your father's criminal conviction, whichever came first." Papers rustled in the background. "Miss Voss, your mother left you $18 million. The apartment went silent. "She knew," Anna whispered. "My mother knew what he was doing." "The trust documents include a letter. Would you like me to read it to you?" "Yes, please." Margaret Chen's voice was gentle as she read, "My darling Anna, if you're hearing this, then the truth has finally come to light. I'm so sorry I wasn't brave enough to expose your father while I was alive. I was weak, and my weakness may have cost lives. But you, my beautiful girl, are strong. Strong enough to do what I couldn't. This money is yours free and clear. Use it to help the families we failed. Use it to build a life based on truth instead of lies. Use it to prove that we Voss women are more than the men who tried to define us. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'm so sorry. Love, Mom." Anna collapsed onto the couch, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. Ethan sat beside her, one hand on her shoulder, giving her space to grieve and heal simultaneously. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with tears, but steady with purpose. "I want to use it for the families. Set up a fund for medical expenses, education, whatever they need. And I want to start a foundation, the Margaret Voss Foundation for Environmental Justice, to make sure this never happens again." "Your mother would be proud," Ethan said. "I hope so." Anna wiped her eyes. "I really hope so." The trial of Richard Voss began on a cold morning in February, 8 months after Anna had first knocked on Ethan's door asking to rent a room. The courthouse steps were lined with protesters holding signs with news vans from every major network with survivors of Raven Lake wearing matching purple ribbons in remembrance of the dead. Ethan, Anna, and Mia sat in the front row of the gallery, directly behind the prosecution table. Sarah Martinez had arranged it, understanding that Anna needed to face her father one last time, not as his daughter, but as his accuser. When Richard Voss entered the courtroom in his expensive suit, flanked by his new legal team, a smaller firm, lesser known, the only ones willing to take his case after the evidence became public, he looked diminished somehow. Not physically smaller, but reduced in presence. Without his empire, without his influence, he was just a man. An angry, frightened man who'd finally run out of people to buy and problems to bury. His eyes found Anna's across the courtroom. For a moment, something flickered in his expression. Regret, maybe. Or recognition of what he'd lost. But then his face hardened into the cold mask she'd known her whole life, and he looked away. The trial lasted 6 weeks. 6 weeks of testimony from environmental scientists, medical experts, former employees who'd been paid to stay silent. 6 weeks of documents entered into evidence, each one another nail in Richard Voss's coffin. 6 weeks of watching the man who'd once controlled everything slowly lose control of his own narrative. The prosecution's star witness was Anna herself. She took the stand on a Tuesday morning wearing a simple blue dress that Hannah had once worn. Ethan had offered it. And Anna had accepted with tears in her eyes, understanding the significance of carrying Hannah's memory into the courtroom. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Jennifer Oakes, led Anna through her testimony with gentle precision. "Miss Voss, can you tell the court how you first discovered the Raven Lake files?" Anna's voice was steady, though her hands trembled in her lap. "I was home from college for winter break. My father was in Tokyo on business. I needed to use his home office computer to print a paper, and when I logged in, I saw a folder labeled RL Cleanup Confidential. I thought it was just corporate paperwork. But when I opened it, I found emails dating back 5 years, emails between my father and his executives discussing how to dispose of chemical waste cheaply, how to avoid EPA regulations, how to suppress medical reports showing elevated cancer rates. And what did you do with this information?" "At first, nothing. I was terrified. I didn't want to believe my own father could do something so horrible. But then I found the list." Anna's voice cracked. A spreadsheet titled RL Medical Outcomes. It had 18 names, 18 people who'd died from cancers linked to environmental contamination. And one of those names was Margaret Voss, my mother. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. "Your father knew the contamination killed your mother." "Yes, the emails showed he knew the water was poisoned. He knew people were getting sick. He knew my mother was drinking that water every time she visited her hometown. And he chose to cover it up rather than admit fault, because admitting fault would have cost him millions in cleanup fees and liability." Objection. Richard Voss's attorney stood. Speculation. Overruled, the judge said firmly. The witness is testifying to what she observed in the documents. Continue, Miss Voss. Anna took a shaky breath. There was an email from my father to his legal team, dated 3 weeks after my mother was diagnosed. It said, "Make sure the Raven Lake situation stays buried, whatever it costs." His own wife was dying from his company's contamination, and he was more worried about lawsuits than her life. The courtroom was absolutely silent. "And that's when you decided to expose him." "Not immediately. I spent months verifying everything, cross-referencing death certificates with property records, medical reports with company documents. I wanted to be absolutely certain before I destroyed my family. And when I was certain, when I knew beyond any doubt that my father had killed 18 people, including my mother, and covered it up, I copied the files and I ran." "Why did you run? Why not go to the authorities? Anna looked directly at her father. Because he'd spent 5 years buying the authorities. Police commissioners, prosecutors, judges. He had them all in his pocket. I knew if I went through official channels, the evidence would disappear and I'd be silenced. So I decided to go to the families instead, to look them in the eye and tell them the truth, to give them the power to decide what to do with it. Jennifer Oakes pulled up a photograph on the courtroom screen. It showed the Riverside Apartments, the handwritten "Room for Rent" sign clearly visible. And that's how you came to live with Ethan Cole. Yes, his wife Hannah was on the list. I researched her family and found that she'd grown up in Raven Lake, that she'd died of cancer at 42. I found out about Ethan and Mia, about how they were struggling after her death. And Anna's voice broke completely. I needed to tell them. I needed them to know that Hannah's death wasn't random bad luck, that someone was responsible, that her life mattered enough to fight for. Did you tell them who you were when you moved in? No, I was ashamed. How do you tell someone, "Hi, I'm the daughter of the man who killed your wife"? So I used a fake name. I told myself I'd tell them eventually when the time was right. But the time was never right because... She looked at Ethan and Mia sitting in the gallery. Because I started to care about them. Because they became my family. And I was terrified that if they knew the truth, they'd hate me. But you told them eventually. I didn't have a choice. My father's security team found me. They came to the apartment and everything came out. I thought Ethan would throw me out. I thought he'd take my father's money and be done with me. Instead, tears streamed down her face now. Instead, he chose to believe me. He chose to stand with me. He chose the truth, even though it would have been so much easier to choose the money. Jennifer Oakes let that statement hang in the air before asking her final question. Miss Voss, do you regret exposing your father? Anna wiped her eyes and spoke with absolute certainty. I regret that I didn't do it sooner. I regret every day that passed while those families suffered without knowing the truth. But exposing him, making sure the world knows what he did, no. I'll never regret that. The defense attorney tried to shake her testimony on cross-examination, painting her as a rebellious daughter, seeking revenge, as mentally unstable and manipulated by anti-corporate activists. But Anna held firm, answering each question with calm precision, never wavering from the truth. When she finally stepped down from the stand, she walked directly to Ethan and Mia. Mia threw her arms around her waist, and Ethan squeezed her shoulder, and Anna realized something profound. She'd spent her whole life looking for her father's approval. But this, the love of people who chose her not because of her name or her money, but because of who she was, this was worth more than any approval could ever be. The prosecution rested their case the following week. The defense called character witnesses who spoke of Richard Voss's philanthropy, his business acumen, his contributions to the community. But their testimonies rang hollow against the mountain of evidence showing what he'd done when no one was watching. The jury deliberated for 7 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood and read the verdict with a voice that carried through the hushed courtroom. On the count of negligent homicide, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of environmental crimes, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of obstruction of justice, we find the defendant guilty. 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 17 times the word echoed through the courthouse. Richard Voss stood perfectly still as his world collapsed around him. No emotion showed on his face, but his hands gripped the table so hard his knuckles went white. The judge set sentencing for 3 weeks later and denied bail. Richard Voss would await sentencing in jail, not in his mansion. The bailiffs led him away in handcuffs, and he didn't look back at Anna. Not once. Outside the courthouse, Ethan had to shield Anna and Mia from the crush of reporters. Questions flew like attacks, but they pushed through in silence until they reached Ethan's car, which was no longer the old dying sedan, but a newer model that Anna had insisted on buying after the trust fund came through. They drove in silence for a while, the weight of the verdict settling over them like snow. "How do you feel?" Ethan asked finally. Anna stared out the window at the city passing by. "Empty," she said. "I thought I'd feel triumphant or relieved or something. But I just feel empty. Like I spent so much energy fighting him that I don't know what to do now that the fight is over." "The fight's not over," Mia piped up from the back seat. "We still have to help all the people who got sick. That's what Mom would want." She meant Margaret, but Ethan heard Hannah in her words too. Both mothers, both lost too soon, both deserving of a daughter like Anna who'd fight for them even after death. "You're right," Anna said, turning to smile at Mia. "The fight's not over. It's just beginning." The sentencing hearing came on a gray March morning. The courtroom was packed with survivors, with families of the victims, with people who'd followed the case and needed to see justice completed. The judge, the same stern woman who'd presided over the trial, looked at Richard Voss with eyes that held no mercy. "Mr. Voss, you were given every advantage in life. Wealth, education, opportunity. And you used those advantages not to build something good, but to prioritize profit over human life. You poisoned a community. You watched people die, including your own wife, and chose to cover it up rather than face the consequences of your actions. You've shown no remorse, no accountability, no recognition that the lives you destroyed had value." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "This court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison on each count of negligent homicide to be served consecutively. Additionally, you are sentenced to 10 years for environmental crimes, 5 years for obstruction of justice, and permanent forfeiture of all assets related to Voss Holdings. You will also pay restitution to the victims' families in an amount to be determined by a separate proceeding." The math was simple and devastating. Richard Voss, at 63 years old, would spend the rest of his life in prison. He showed no reaction as the bailiffs led him away. But Anna saw at the slight slump of his shoulders the first crack in the armor he'd worn his entire life. He was no longer Richard Voss, billionaire CEO. He was just prisoner number 847392, and all his money and power couldn't change that. The restitution hearing took place 2 months later. The judge ordered the liquidation of all Voss Holdings assets with proceeds divided among the 89 families who'd joined the class action lawsuit. After legal fees and administrative costs, each family received approximately $3 million. It wouldn't bring back the dead. It wouldn't undo the years of suffering. But it meant that Patricia could afford the medical care that might save her own life from the cancer that was just beginning. It meant James's daughter could have the surgeries she needed. It meant Ellen could establish a scholarship fund in memory of her students. It meant the victims mattered, that their lives had value, that justice, however imperfect and however late, was possible. Anna used her mother's trust fund exactly as she'd promised. She established the Margaret Voss Foundation for Environmental Justice with an initial endowment of $10 million. The foundation's mission was to investigate corporate environmental crimes, support whistleblowers, and provide legal aid to communities fighting pollution. She kept $8 million for herself, enough to be comfortable to never worry about money, but not enough to live like a billionaire. She wanted to be wealthy enough to do good, but not so wealthy that she forgot what normal people's lives looked like. And she stayed in apartment 3C. "You could afford a mansion," Ethan pointed out one evening as they assembled IKEA furniture for Anna's room. Real furniture, not the sparse pieces that had been there when she moved in. "I don't want a mansion. Mansions are lonely." Anna fitted a wooden dowel into a pre-drilled hole. "Besides, this is home. Why would I leave home?" The question hung in the air between them, and Ethan realized she wasn't just talking about the apartment. She was talking about them, about the family they'd accidentally created in the midst of fighting for justice. 6 months after the sentencing, on a warm evening in September, Anna took Mia to City Hall for a special ceremony. The mayor was launching the Clean Water Initiative, a new program to test and monitor water quality in low-income communities across the state. It was funded by a substantial grant from the Margaret Voss Foundation. Anna had been asked to speak at the launch. She stood at the podium in a simple black dress, looking out at the crowd of politicians, activists, and community members, and she felt Hannah's presence like a whisper. This was what doing right looked like. This was what justice in action felt like. My mother used to tell me that we're all connected. Anna began, her voice steady and clear. That what we do to the water, we do to ourselves. That poisoning the earth is the same as poisoning our neighbors. She understood that we're all drinking from the same well, even when we pretend the well isn't ours to protect. She paused, gathering her thoughts. My father didn't understand that. Or maybe he did understand and just didn't care. He saw 18 people as acceptable losses in the pursuit of profit. He saw my mother's life as less important than his quarterly earnings, and he thought he truly believed that his money and power made him immune to consequences. Anna's eyes found Ethan and Mia in the crowd. But here's what he didn't understand. Power isn't what you inherit or what you buy. Real power is what you choose to do when doing the right thing costs you everything. Real power is standing up even when you're terrified. Real power is choosing truth over comfort. She reached into her pocket and pulled out 3 objects, placing them carefully on the podium. The first was a wooden key that Mia had carved in art class. Carved into it in careful letters was the word home. This is from Mia Cole, who taught me that family isn't about blood or money, it's about who stays when staying gets hard. The second was a paper crane folded from newspaper. The headline visible on its wing read, "Voss convicted on all counts." This is the 1,000th crane we folded together. We made a wish that the truth would win, and it did. The third was a faded rental receipt, barely legible, but preserved in a plastic sleeve. This is the receipt from the day I rented a room from Ethan Cole for $200 a month. It's the best investment I ever made, because that room, that small shabby room in a rundown apartment building, saved my life. It gave me a family. It gave me purpose. It gave me the courage to do what needed to be done. Anna looked out at the crowd, at the cameras broadcasting this moment across the city. We're launching this clean water initiative today in memory of 18 people who died unnecessarily. Margaret Voss, Hannah Cole, 15 others whose names deserve to be remembered. But we're not just remembering them. We're making sure their deaths meant something. We're making sure this never happens again. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, as they walked back to the car, Mia slipped her hand into Anna's. "I'm proud of you," Mia said simply. Anna knelt down to Mia's level. "I'm proud of you too. You know why? Why? Because you never stopped believing we could win. Even when I was scared, even when your dad was scared, you kept folding those cranes and believing that doing good things mattered. You kept the faith when the rest of us were losing it." Mia threw her arms around Anna's neck. "You're my family now, for real, forever." "Forever," Anna promised. That night back in apartment 3C, Ethan made dinner while Anna helped Mia with homework. It was such a normal scene, so utterly ordinary, that it took Ethan's breath away. After months of chaos and fear and fighting, they'd found their way back to this, the quiet rhythm of family life. After Mia went to bed, Ethan and Anna sat on the couch with cups of tea, watching the paper cranes drift slowly in the breeze from the open window. "I've been thinking," Anna said quietly, "about changing my name. Legally, I mean." "To what?" "I don't know yet. Something that's mine, not my father's." She turned to look at him. "What was Hannah's maiden name?" "Winters. Hannah Winters." "That's beautiful." Anna smiled. "Anna Winters. What do you think?" "I think Hannah would be honored." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Anna spoke again, her voice uncertain. "Can I ask you something? And you have to promise to be honest." "Always." "Do you think—" She stopped, gathering courage. "Do you think Hannah would have wanted this, me being here, being part of your family? Or would she—" "She would have loved you," Ethan interrupted gently. "Hannah believed in second chances, in redemption, in choosing who you want to be instead of accepting who you were born as. You embody everything she believed in." "I miss her," Anna said. Isn't that strange? I never met her, but I miss her. I don't think that's strange at all. You carry her memory forward. You and Mia both. That's what love does. It extends beyond death through the people who remember. A year to the day after Anna had first knocked on Ethan's door, they held a celebration in the apartment building's community room. Not a party exactly. More like a gathering of people who'd survived something together and wanted to mark the anniversary. All the neighbors came. Mrs. Chen brought her famous dumplings. Mr. Rodriguez made his mother's tamales. The Patels provided samosas and sweets. Danny Park showed up with a cake decorated with paper cranes. Sarah Martinez came along with Jennifer Oakes and several of the FBI agents who'd worked the case. Even the judge sent a card congratulating them on the foundation's early successes. But the most important guests were the families. Patricia, who'd just finished her last round of chemotherapy and was in remission. James, whose daughter had undergone successful surgery. Ellen, who'd established her scholarship fund and already awarded its first grant. They shared stories, tears, laughter. They remembered the ones who'd been lost and celebrated the ones who'd survived. They acknowledged the pain of the past while looking toward a future that felt for the first time hopeful. Ethan stood and raised his glass of sparkling cider. A year ago, a girl knocked on my door, asking to rent a room. I thought I was just getting a tenant who'd help with the bills. Instead, I got a daughter who helped me remember what fighting for something means. I got a reminder that doing the right thing isn't always easy or profitable or comfortable, but it's always worth it. He looked at Anna, whose eyes were shining with tears. Hannah used to say that we're all just walking each other home, that we're all trying to find our way in the dark, and the best thing we can do is hold up lights for each other. Anna, you held up a light when everything around us was dark. You showed us that truth matters, that justice is possible, that family is what we make it, not what we're born into. Anna stood, and Ethan pulled her into a hug. Mia joined them, wrapping her small arms around both of them, and the neighbors applauded not for what they'd achieved, but for what they'd become, proof that love and courage could triumph over power and greed. 2 years later, Apartment 3C underwent a small but significant change. Ethan removed the old "Room for Rent" sign from the community bulletin board and replaced it with something else. A small bronze plaque mounted beside the apartment door. The Cole Winters family home of the Margaret Voss Foundation for Environmental Justice, where truth found courage and strangers became family. Mia had designed it. Anna had commissioned it. Ethan had installed it. Together, they stood in the hallway and looked at it, this marker of everything they'd survived and everything they'd built. "Do you think people will understand?" Mia asked. "What it means?" "I think the right people will," Anna said. Inside the apartment, the paper cranes still hung from the ceiling, exactly 1,000 of them, each one representing a wish, a hope, a belief that doing good things could create good outcomes. The wish had come true, more or less. Richard Voss was in prison. The families had received justice and compensation. The foundation was thriving, investigating 3 new cases of corporate environmental crime and supporting whistleblowers across the country. But the real magic hadn't been in the wish itself. It had been in the act of making it together, in the shared belief that their actions mattered, that their choices had power, that love and truth were worth fighting for, even when the fight seemed impossible. Ethan often thought about the night Anna had been arrested, when he'd held that USB drive, and wondered if they were fighting a battle they couldn't win. He thought about all the moments when giving up would have been easier than pressing forward, when taking the money would have been more practical than choosing principle. And he thought about Hannah, who'd lived her whole life believing that people were fundamentally good, that the world could be better, that one person's courage could spark a revolution. She'd been right. One girl with one USB drive and one terrible secret had brought down an empire. Not because she was powerful or wealthy or connected, but because she'd chosen truth over comfort, justice over family loyalty, love over inheritance. And $200 had been enough to change the world. Because the room Anna had rented wasn't just physical space in an apartment, it was sanctuary. It was the place where a frightened girl became brave, where a grieving father found purpose again, where a child learned that doing right mattered more than being comfortable. Years from now, when people told the story of Richard Voss's fall, they'd talk about the trial, and the evidence, and the legal battles. But those who truly understood would remember the smaller story, inside the bigger one, the story of three people who'd lost everything, finding each other in the wreckage, and building something beautiful from the ruins. They'd remember that the richest inheritance isn't money or power or influence. It's truth, redemption, and the family you choose when choosing is hard. It's knowing that your life means something, because you made it mean something, not because someone handed you meaning, wrapped in privilege and lies. And they'd remember that sometimes justice doesn't come from the system. It comes from ordinary people who decide they've had enough of being ordinary, who stand up and speak truth even when their voices shake, who fold 1,000 paper cranes and wish for a better world, and then go out and build that world themselves, one brave choice at a time. The room that saved lives wasn't special because of what it contained. It was special because of what it represented, the possibility of transformation, the power of truth, and the unwavering belief that love, real love, chosen love, is always worth fighting for, no matter the cost.